it's me, Player Negative, and today, for today's video, I want to talk about a topic that's been very controversial and feels like it could use a little bit of explaining to the casual viewer, so I'll just talk. Today we're talking about emulation. Now, you've probably seen me either mention emulation a few times in my past videos or use it to get footage of older games that you probably couldn't get if you decided to walk to your local Costco or Walmart. So today I'm going to explain what emulation is, why people use it, why it has such mixed results, and how you yourself can emulate a classic video game from an old era for your own personal reasons. So I think we should start this video off by explaining what emulation actually is. One of the definitions of emulation is to mimic or imitate hardware for a certain type of software, and in this case that's the type of definition I'm using. Now, emulating in general is basically when a person is able to download the software of an older console's titles and play them on a separate device. Now, why do people do this? Well, there are three particular reasons, but I say the main one is quite obvious. And that reason is the fact that the gaming industry is on fire. Three different reasons why there are multiple factors. I could boil it down to three. Political agendas being inserted in games, gutting the original story, price hiking due to companies irresponsibly spending their money on AI and blaming it all on Trump, and lastly, the fact that there are just really not any interesting games at the moment. So to escape this current issue that we're in, most people choose to play older titles either by buying the original software or by emulating them due to the fact it's a much easier and cheaper alternative. Another reason is simply nostalgia. Some people who want to experience these games again, who are much older now, who can't get access to these older consoles due to collectors or scalpers charging up higher prices, use alternative methods like emulation to play these games. So you're probably sitting there asking yourself, well, what's the problem? All this sounds pretty interesting and nothing seems to be an issue. The problem is that there is no problem. So Hardman Smith came around and now we got a problem. Okay, not gonna lie, there were multiple other people besides Hardman Smith who's the reason why emulation has such controversy, but there are three types of people in total. The people who don't want you to use emulators so they can charge you hundreds of dollars for games that were made decades ago to pander to your nostalgia. People who don't play video games and confuse emulation with piracy and thinks that you deserve to go to jail. And lastly, the fanboys and the shills who hate the idea of you playing games that they're waiting Nintendo to charge you years later for free. Now, I want to make something very clear. Piracy and emulation are two different things. And most of the time, as Gabe Newell, the director of Valve, stated, piracy is the result of a lack of good service. Which is why you don't see people trying to pirate TF2 or Portal, or the Portal games or the Half-Life series, because those games are on a storefront with a good service. Emulation has gotten a lot of friction, mainly due to the fact that there are people who either don't understand it or think that it falls into some sort of moral or ethical problem. When in reality, it's not really hurting anyone, and the companies aren't being hurt by it financially due to the fact that they're old games. Now, in my honest opinion, it depends on the type of games that you're emulating. Three reasons why emulating the types of games that most people do isn't illegal is simple. Number one, you can't buy them anywhere else. You can't buy them on the current storefronts. You can't get them by getting the original consoles because most of the time they're either cost too much because of their age and because those games are no longer being produced. Number two, they're old. They are extremely old and they have no value to the company whatsoever, either because the series that the game is either not regarded or because they simply just don't care. And number 3, many people believe it's preserving the games and letting newer people experience those games for the first time. Another reason is also because the PC and other consoles or other software or hardware lets you experience those games at a higher fidelity and better button controls than what the original console let you have, mainly due to the fact that the older consoles' hardware was very limited back then, and having a much more advanced form of hardware allows you to experience these games in a better light. Also, not to go on a tangent here, but Hardman Smith, apart from being a massive shill for a horrible corporation, is just a bad person overall. Why do I say that? Well, it's pretty simple. Let's start off with how this sucker makes a living. He makes books that are romanticized, explicit material of grown men being in relationships with minors. That alone would be enough to get you to hate him. But also, what he does is he calls people who use emulation this. He also disrespects a war veteran simply for being a woman and calls her a you know what, I'm not going to repeat that because I don't think I could say that, and since YouTube sees me as a smaller, more vulnerable channel to copyright strike whenever they please, they're probably going to do something if I repeat that. Yet somehow this guy still has a platform. And if that wasn't enough for you of what he does, there's a Pikachu plush in his house that has seen things. Just, ugh. Hardman aside, emulation has both a reputation of being loved and hated. So with that being said, how do you do it? Well, that's what we're going to get into right now. So you're probably asking yourself, where do you start? How do you do this? Well, it really depends. First, you need to think of a game that you want to emulate. Like, for instance, say I want to emulate a GameCube game like Sonic Adventure 2. Well, you're going to need Dolphin Emulator for that. Or say I want to emulate an N64 game like good old Mario 64. Well, you're going to need Project 64 for that. Now, I'm going to walk you through a simple step-by-step on how to play or set up an emulator with the game you want to try out. Good? Good. Alright, without further ado, let's go! First thing first, you want to go to the respective website. I'm going to go to Project 64, and as soon as you show up on this website, there are 2 different types of download buttons. Now, because emulation is such a thing, people will put ads disguised as download buttons to trick you to downloading something else instead of the actual game. What you want to do is actually scroll down here and go to downloads. Cut this ad, like I said. Now, because there are multiple different types of consoles being made for this, you want to download the right type of version of this for the right type of software. You also want to read the fine print of anything to make sure that you're downloading things properly and going through the basic steps. Okay, once that is done, you should see the software in question in your home page. Now you can see this is a blank slate. There's absolutely nothing, but sometimes you will get this, which generally just goes through the entirety of what the console or emulator in question is meant for, its general purpose, and everything in between. Now, you're probably wondering, how do I put a game in here? And that's where one of the underlying problems come in. Now, you're going to want to go to romgames.com. And you should go through a similar process to what I showed you earlier. But that's like the basis of what I can show you. You see, the problem is that because there are stupid people who think emulation is piracy, there are people who will basically flag me on YouTube just for showing you the steps of how to download a ROM. So, for this little section of the area, you're on your own. But once you do get that done, you either want to go down to your files and pull it up, or if it's already on your desktop, just grab the respective ROM or file. Now, let's talk about a few other aspects. Number one, you can go to options to enhance the graphical settings. Say I want things to look more crisp, add ray tracing, you know, the standard stuff. But say you don't want to use a mouse and keyboard. Maybe that's not what you like. You can use an Xbox controller. Simply connect it through Bluetooth. Go to options. Go to input settings. And if you basically click this while clicking the button you want it to do, you can set up the button layout to work with your Xbox controller. After you finish going through all the steps with the controller, you hit OK. Now, you drag the ROM or respective file you have, put into the game, and bada bing, bada boom, you have it set up. Go to full screen if you want to control it.
Hello.
And there we go. Mario 64 on a PC. But of course, not all of you have a PC, and judging by the shortage in RAM prices, not all of you can build or buy a PC. So, there's an alternative to this issue. Mobile emulation.
And here we go.
Emulating on mobile can be just as well as doing it on a PC, but you gotta be careful on what you're emulating to be exact. Now, depending on what you are looking for, there are a lot of different emulation apps you can use, but not all of them are actually used for the right purpose. Some of them are scummy and some of them you can't exactly trust. So for the sake of this video, I'm going to use Dolphin Emulator because that's an actual emulator that is not sketchy and one that many people trust. I'm going to be downloading an emulation of a ROM of Kirby Air Ride. Now, what you're going to do is want to start off by going to the same site as before and downloading a ROM of a GameCube game. Now you simply just select the game and it should boot up properly. Now, as you can see, there is a bit of these buttons overlaying for the controls if you're using touchscreen, but say you want to use a controller instead. Well, you're able to go to the controls overlay setting and simply click that, go to choose controller, and you can set up a button loadout for an Xbox controller to work on here. The emulator runs pretty fine. The only issue is don't close Windows, might see the glitches, and due to the fact it's on mobile, the sound quality may differ. But apart from that, it's pretty good and pretty well level quality. I would definitely recommend this to anyone starting out. But let's say you're not convinced. Let's say, despite everything I've told you, you still think emulation is piracy. Well, here's another form of emulation I didn't talk about: data dumping. This is basically where you take a special accessory like a cartridge dumper, take a game you've already paid for, and connect it to your computer, which you're able to take the software and files from that disc and or cartridge and put it on your computer, creating a copy of it. This is what many casual people who emulate consider to be the quote-unquote right way to do it. So, in conclusion, emulation is both a useful and interesting tool both to play older games and preserve them. And while there is still controversy on whether or not it's legal, it is actually still a useful and interesting alternative due to the trying times we seem to be going in terms of the gaming industry. Well, I hope this video helped you out. I'm Player Negative. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and turn on all notifications. It really helps the channel, and I will see you later.